One of the themes of the NHL over the past year or two is that there aren't enough solid goalies out there to cover all the teams that really are in need of solid goaltending. So in this current landscape, the Blues are counting on their goalie tandem more than ever. Can Jordan Binnington and Joel Hofer, can they be a strength for this team in 2025, 26? Can Binnington replicate his success from a couple seasons ago? Can Joel Hofer take another step in his career before potentially needing to take over the starting job in the crease? The Blues will also get to see their first full season under head coach Jim Montgomery. And can he lead them to break 100 points this year? Will he help them get off to a good start? That's one theme that has been present in a lot of his media availability lately. So let's take a look at the goaltending situation, the head coaching situation, and also the front office situation before Doug Armstrong passes the reins to Alexander Steen, and just do a preview before the 2025-26 season. All that and more today on No News. Welcome into another episode of Note News. It's John and Alec with you as always. We're a St. Louis Blues podcast, and we go live twice a week talking all things Blues. We really love making this content for you. We have a great time talking Blues hockey twice a week. We have a great time interacting with all of you live in the chat as well as in comments and things like that after the fact. So, thanks to everyone for sort of joining our community and being a part of what we're doing here. We really enjoy it. And thanks as well for getting us to 500 subscribers. That really helps us out. It's a big milestone for us. So let's keep it going and set a new milestone. And so hit that button if you haven't already. Like this video if you haven't already. Follow, rate, review wherever you listen, Spotify and Apple. Those really help us out as well. And then follow us on socials: Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. Post a lot of other great stuff and interact with you, the listeners, and our wonderful followers over there as well. So do all that good stuff if you haven't already. We really appreciate everyone. Um, Today we're continuing our off-season coverage, our 2025-26 season preview, by looking at the goaltending and what Alec is calling the Blues brass, which I think is actually like a fun pun related to music. Anyways, we like those. High note, low note. We do all kinds of fun segments like that. But the Blues brass, which is basically just Jim Montgomery, the head coach, as well as the front office. This is sort of a big time in the front office. Doug Armstrong, about to start his last full season as president of I almost said baseball operations, president of hockey ops. He will pass the reins over to Alexander Steen, and I think he'll stay in the organization, right, as some kind of advisor or just sort of upper level. He says he does the 30,000 foot view now, so he'll I guess go even higher, maybe 60,000 or something like that. But anyways, so big season for the front office as well. A lot of implications with the upcoming season. So we're here to talk about all that. Alec, just to kick things off here, um, this Blues goalie tandem at times has been like their greatest strength. Other times it hasn't looked so great. I mean, I think the quality of defense being played around them has a big impact. It was interesting because in 2023, 24, that whole season the defense wasn't really all that great, but the goaltending looked fantastic. This past season, 24, 25, it was sort of the opposite story. The defense looked really great for most of the year, and the goaltending wasn't bad, but it wasn't at that same sort of top of the league ish level that we had seen the previous year. So, I mean, how you feeling about the tandem coming into this year, the goalie situation? I look at a lot of other teams around the league, even contenders like the Oilers. Like, I don't envy, I don't envy them. Stuart Skinner, Calvin Pickard is not a tandem that I would really want to be going into as a pretty much consensus Stanley Cup contender. Um, so how are you feeling about the Blues goalie situation going into 25-26? We get another year of Jordan Binnington, another year of development for Joel Hofer. What you thinking about the Blues goalies?
Well, I think The netminder situation should be mostly set. I don't think there should be a lot of expectation for movement here between Hofer and Binner. The only question that remains is what happens with Colton Ellis, but I think that's something that will get more clarity on as the season progresses. Um, I feel very safe and secure with our goaltender situation. I think you have your 1-2 punch, your sort of Batman and Robin, or maybe even like a I don't know, like the Wonder Twins or um, a duo that switches off a little bit more. While Binnington is the starter, he isn't exactly the
It's not like a Hellebuck
or
level.
yeah, and in the regular season is where he leaves the most to be desired.
Hmm.
However, he still did get up to a 900 save percentage last year, 910 in that really good season, and has shown real effort to improve year after year. Um, I wrote a piece about this about how his regular season numbers might be getting blown out of proportion just a little bit. I think that there's been an effort from him to increase and improve year after year that isn't really being acknowledged. And then there's that one bad season that sort of throws everything out of whack. And then this past season, back up to a 900, like I said. So with Binner, I would say it's good at times, great. You want it to be great all the time. Um, and I think we will have our efforts rewarded if we continue to put our faith in Binnington because he's shown up and rewarded every effort so far. I mean, especially this past season in the playoffs was one of the best goalie in the entire league in the playoffs. Per Money Puck, he was 10th in goals saved above expected in the postseason of
Hmm.
all goalies with minimum one game played. If you set that to 4 games played, so a season at least or a series at least, he jumps up to eighth. Um, and also in high danger shot chances is where Binnington really shines. He was seventh in high danger. Where is it? He was seventh in high danger unblocked or sixth, excuse me, in high danger unblocked shot attempt save percentage. So
Hmm.
in shots that are very very dangerous looks that should really be going in, Bennington was sixth in the playoffs, and one of the best in all high danger marks. So you've got your big game guy, and then Hofer can be sort of the stabilizer, the stabilizing force to Bennington's big game heroics. You know, he can offer a little bit more of a change up to if Bennington is the fastball, I guess, to use more analogies here. I don't know where these are coming from. Um, I think with Hofer, you know, he'll have the occasional blow up start like any goalie, but any goalie will have a blow up start like that. And Hofer is more consistent than usually they come, especially for backup goaltenders. Definitely earned that contract extension, um, and is now going to be paid like one of the better backup goalies in the league, which we all expect he can be. Um, and so I think their expectations are right for Hofer and Binnington. I think they both settled in as this really nice complementary duo where maybe not one individual piece on its own you would feel great about, like an Igor Shesterkin. But hey, there's only 5 of those in the league, maybe. Um, and so if you don't have one of those, you know, Shesterkin level goalies, Connor Hellebuck, etc., you do have a tandem that can guarantee you a baseline of solid play that can be really valuable on top of the fact that Binnington is still getting better and could just go out and win the Vesna and prove us all wrong because he's Jordan Binnington. To still have a goalie of that caliber who is a proven playoff goaltender is such a difficult thing to find. And then having the backup of Joel Hofer to be a stabilizing force, like I've been saying, it just all makes sense and works so well, I think, to the Blues' benefit here.
It definitely does. I think just to I feel like Jordan Binnington is obviously the place we should really start this conversation in depth, and those are some great stats as well. Um, just looking at sort of what he's good at, but also where he struggles, which I'll sort of bring in here. One thing that's interesting from last year is that at 5-on-5, among goalies with 2,500 minutes played, Binnington gave up the well, it, his average goal distance was the second highest. So this is an interesting stat. So on average, how where are they giving up goals from on the ice? And Jordan Binnington is second in the league with 22.49. I'm guessing that's feet, not inches or anything like that. I mean, it actually doesn't say, so I don't know. But either way, the point is he tends to struggle. I think when the puck gets further away from the net. Um, but I think that's an area where hopefully good defense can sort of help account for that. The further away a shot is taken from the net, obviously the more opportunity there is to put a body between the puck and the goal, and um, hopefully get a block. So I think that's something that's fixable. You mentioned how great he is in high danger, or at least how great he can be. Um, but then you also sort of hinted at it at the beginning, like with Bennington, it seems like the big issue or the big question is, can he do it for a while? Can he play at a high clip for weeks at a time? Not just when the lights are bright. It's fantastic that when the pressure's on, when the lights are bright, whatever phrase you want to use, it's fantastic that in those moments he really pulls through and performs. Um, and this is a question we've asked and answered. I would prefer to have a goalie like that who is a little more. I wouldn't say mediocre, but not necessarily like elite in the regular season, like a Connor Hellebuck or like a Vasilevsky or someone like that. I would prefer to have a guy who can unlock that in the playoffs rather than a guy who can perform all year long and then collapses in the playoffs. So if that's what we get again this year, I'll take it. But I think the question remains, like, can he put it together for an extended period during the regular season? Can he be that guy that is in the conversation for a Vezina Trophy? He's only a couple years removed from, I think, a season, in my opinion, a season that at least warranted being a finalist. I mean, he wasn't going to win the Vezina in 2023-24. It was Hellebuck's award, but Bennington had such a good year that year, and I think flew under the radar in sort of mainstream media. And I know that I am definitely biased. I'm a Blues fan, but he wasn't a finalist that year, and I think he should have been. I think he should have maybe been in at least in that conversation more than he was. So that's sort of neither here nor there. But we saw him do at least something close to what I'm describing, um, just a couple years ago. So like, I mean, what do you think it's going to take for him to do it again? I mean, do you think it's fair to expect him to take that step, or do you think we've got a large enough sample size that this is just who he is, and if we get a great regular season, that's just sort of like a cherry on top to you know who Jordan Binnington is.
It's tough because I kind of want to go both ways on it, in that this is your playoff performer, so that's the one thing you ask him to do. He has to perform at that level, and he always has and should continue to. So in a sense, I want to say that that's enough, but at the same point, I do kind of feel like there's another level of to be reached with Bennington that could really elevate his status in the NHL. I think the Four Nations did a lot for his reputation, especially in Canada. Um, but yeah, I just think that with Benner, if you look at, okay, while it isn't the greatest stat to use, if you look at his goals against average in that really good 2022 season, or sorry, 2021 season. No, it was 2024. Okay, I'm getting my years mixed up. Let me start over. So post bubble, in the last time the Blues made the playoffs, 2022, he had a 901 save percentage, a 313 goals against. Those are solid starter, middle of the pack numbers. The next season, in a very bad year for the Blues, he had an 894 save percentage and a 331 goals against. That's below average, but not like unplayably bad. It's not, worse than the league or anything. The next season, 2024, that season that you're talking about where he should have been considered for the Vezina, had a 913 save percentage, 284 goals against average. That is fantastic. That's excellent. Looking to last season, he had a 900 save percentage on the dot, played 56 games or started 56 games, um, but at a 269 goals against average. So his save percentage numbers do fluctuate a little bit, but pretty consistently his goals against has been getting better and better and better from 331 to 284 to 269. You'd hope that the save percentage, which is the more telling and important stat, could follow suit, but he has been on average having less blow up starts per year. And if he can cut that out of his game, then I think you can start to see the save percentage numbers start to climb. Because the other thing that's been improving are his wins. Binnington is giving his team a chance to win when he starts more often than not than he was at the beginning of his career. So, from that same parameters, from 2022, he started 37 games, won 18 of them. The next season started 60 games, won 27. The next season 55, won 28, and last season 54, also won 28. So his career high is 30 in the 2019-2020 season, 30 wins with 50 games started. But he's been improving on his win total too. Again, giving more solid, consistent efforts as the years have gone on, as he gets that experience as a goalie, as he improves, as mentally improves at the game. He's been finding more consistency in all of these other statistics other than save percentage, which again I understand is a very important statistic. I don't mean to just throw that out, um, but there is an indication that there's another level to be unlocked with Binnington. If he can continue on this trajectory of marginal improvement after marginal improvement, in a season or two, we could absolutely see Binnington in some award conversations if he continues to play at the level that or if he continues to increase his baseline of play. We know his high level is up here to at the top of what any goalie can do. But if he can raise his floor and meet that, there's a very low margin of error for failure for Binnington, or a low percentage that Binnington is going to have an outright failure of a year. I think that mental side of his game is developing, is taking time to come along as it typically does for goalies. And I do think it's fair to expect a little and want a little bit more out of Bennington because I think it's in there. I think it's there for him to take. One more thing I forgot to mention too is his shutouts has been consistently improving too. Had 5 shutouts in his rookie year, his career high, then 3-0, and then 2-2-3-3 shutouts. So if he can continue to steal more games, give more heroic efforts, which he's always been capable of, and pair that with a consistent level of not blowing up as much, I think we could absolutely see another level of Binnington in the regular season.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's hard to know what to make of his save percentage, like you said. I mean, it just sort of has fluctuated so wildly over the past several seasons. I think somewhere between what we got last year and the year before is a reasonable expectation for him. I think so that would be between 900, which was last year, and 913, which was the year before. I feel like above 900 should be the expectation for Benner on a team like like the Blues are going to be, putting out there next year, which by all indications should be an improvement upon last year and the year before that. So, um, playing behind a solid team, solid defense, hopefully solid defense, fingers crossed and knock on wood. Um, I think it would be fair to expect his save percentage to maybe jump back up, maybe not up to like the the 913s that we've seen from him, the 910, 912. Although 910 isn't that crazy, but probably not something like his first year at 927. Like I don't know if we can expect like a career year or anything like that. I mean, maybe I don't know. I mean, he's still in the window where he could have that career year for sure. So, but my point is, I guess my point is, I don't think it's fair to expect that. I think it's fair to expect an improvement on the save percentage and maybe sort of hanging around that goals allowed average that he's had in the mid to upper twos in the past couple of years. Um, and then in terms of wins and games started, I mean like high 20s, maybe even into the 30s with a better team. Um, should be a reasonable expectation as well. What I'm really excited to see and sort of hopeful to see, even though this was a strength for him last year and the Blues still weren't so good, uh, the penalty kill. The Blues were not a great penalty killing team last year, but through it all, Jordan Binnington performed. I mean, what I'm seeing here is that in 2024-25, when shorthanded, had a 970 save percentage. Is that right?
I mean,
Um,
watching him play, that sounds right.
yeah. So I don't know if that number is exactly right because it also said he gave up only one shorthanded goal. So I don't know if that's right. Um,
Shorthanded.
yes, that's what I'm
So
looking at
then,
here.
when the Blues were on the power play,
Maybe. Hold on, let me pull it back up. Um, it says. I mean, it says no. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is I'll have to look through these stats again. All I know is like this is something we talked about at the end of the season as well. I'll have to find the exact stats I was referencing, but he's really solid on the penalty kill. So um, yeah, I'm just hopeful to see that improve. They brought in Pia Suter, who's a great penalty killer. So hopefully, hopefully, fingers crossed, that unit can improve. And if not a strength, just be just not be a weakness for this team because it was difficult to watch a lot last year. Um,
Hoferly.
that was bad, man. Um, um, Speaking of, why don't we switch over to Hofer? Uh, what I want to start with is do you think he can take another step? Because the past couple seasons that we've gotten out of him have been sort of around the same, uh, a similar level. Started 30 games 2 years ago, won 27 of them. Last year started 31, won 28 of them. Or no, sorry, goodness gracious. Started 27 2 years ago and won 15. Started 28 last year, won 16. Um, and 2 years ago, put up a 913 save percentage and a goals allowed average of 2.65. Last year, a 904 save percentage and a 2.64 goals allowed average. So back to back, pretty similar years from Joel Hofer. What are your thoughts on another season of Hof? Do you think he can take a step and improve on those numbers? That's sort of my first question. And then my follow up to that is at what point, if ever, do you think we'll see him start a few more games than, you know, 20, what did I say, 27, 28? Do you think it'll you know, do you think he can earn a greater share of the starts is sort of my follow up question.
Well, about midseason last year, we were calling, I think, for Hofer to earn a little bit more of the workload, and they ended up sticking with Binner. But yeah, I think Hofer is just entering his sort of aging curve. I mean, it was really before it as a 25-year-old. It was his birthday just a few days ago, actually. Um, as a 25-year-old is still like has a long way to go in terms of development, and he put up a 904 save percentage last year. So there could be another level for Hofer beyond Binnington, just like given natural age regression, how long it usually takes guys to figure it out. Um, that could be really, really exciting. Like, seriously, like, I mean, I don't want to set expectations too high, but just thinking about how development happens for 25-year-olds. I mean, look at Robert Thomas, who's just now at that same age, and we're all expecting big things from him. I'm not saying Hofer is Robert Thomas of goaltending, but I'm saying Hofer has the potential to maybe like be something really special. So could he earn more of the lion's share? I think he could. Binnington, it's going to be a tough ask for Hofer to win the job. Binnington is really this team's guy for so many reasons, and something that I talk a lot about. I feel like is the marketing of it all. That is like it or not, that is important for them to sell jerseys and develop fan favorites. And Binner has been selected as sort of one of the guys that they push out. So I think it's going to be a really difficult task for Hofer to completely take over as the regular season starter. Um, do I think it's out of the question? I kind of do, but that's just my take on it. I could see a reality, especially like if you want to talk like a NHL franchise mode. I think there's definitely a reality where Hofer takes over as the starter, but I would like to see a lot more. I would like to see more playing time for Hofer. I think starting, what was it, 31 games last season, that's not bad. But if you would get, I think, closer to like 35 games started, um, I don't, pushing 40 is probably a bit much. That would be a 50-50 split between Binner and Hofer, unless he earns it. But yeah, is consistently ranked towards the top of the league in terms of backup goaltenders in goals saved above expected. However, last year he did, it feels like, have a lot more like blow up starts than previously. I feel like that was especially in that year where they were really good 2 years ago. That was the thing, was Hofer just didn't have blow up starts. He would give up at most 4 goals in a night, but even then, like, typically was more in the 1 to 3 range, giving his team a chance to win. Hofer, on the other hand, last season had some really bad games, and that really dragged his numbers down. Uh, Allowed the most goals in his career, um, and I would really like to see. I'd really like them to let him loose a little bit and let him play, try. I would, what I would really ideally like to see is have this be more of a competition, which would push Bennington to produce better, as well as Hofer to take the job and sort of work almost with a chip on his shoulder that he has to earn it from Binner. I think that could really push both of them, but all indications so far are that it's going to be Bennington still, and Hofer, it just is the backup. So that competition isn't really going to be there to drive it, and I kind of wish they would. So in a way, you could say that they could be mishandling the Joel Hofer situation, but then that could mess with the stability of Bennington and just mess with his development and his role on the team as a whole. So maybe they're just playing it safe. Um, but yeah, I'd like to see a little bit more from Hofer. I think he's a really, really good quality backup goalie, but can he be more of a 1B than a 2A? I think it's in there for Hofer, but we just have to see it.
Yeah, for sure. And that sort of leads me to another question: is sort of the contract question, right? Because in not after this upcoming season, but the following one in 2020, 2027, Benner will be a UFA. At least that's what he's scheduled when he's scheduled to hit free agency again. And then Joel Hofer will be an RFA as of that summer. So, do you think they'll keep both of these guys around? Do you think we'll see a switch in net sort of towards the end of that timeline? Um, could they maybe add someone externally, I guess? But like, how do you see, as we sit here today on August 6th, 2025, how do you see the goalie situation playing out in St. Louis, sort of at the end of those 2 years? Because I can see it going one of two ways: either they just sort of ride out the rest of Bennington's contract and let him walk, which would be unfortunate to see, like a franchise sort of legend and icon and all-time great leave. But you gotta be careful with long term contracts, all that kind of stuff. So let him walk and just sort of let Hofer assume the mantle at that point. hopefully by then he'll have developed enough to be ready. And then you sort of address the backup situation, whether it's within the system or externally. The other way I see it playing out is they just try to extend both of them or extend Binnington and let Hofer go. I don't think they'll like. I don't know if they'll trade. I don't see them trading Binner. I'll say that, but like by the end of the contract, I think their competitive window will be open for long enough to want to hold on to him. Um, I could see them potentially trading Hofer if they're willing to commit to Jordan Binnington long term, and you know have Colton Ellis in the system, that kind of stuff. Like I could, there's a world where I could see that, um, but I think sort of trying to keep both of them around or letting Hofer take over at the end of the 2 years is sort of the two main ways I see it playing out. How do you see the goalie situation playing out in St. Louis?
I don't. I agree. I don't see them moving on from Bennington. I don't think that makes much sense. I also don't really see. I don't really see letting him just walk. I think for so many reasons, if they're gonna move on from Bennington, it feels like it has to be through a trade. Like you have to get some assets. He obviously has some interest around the league. Um, Given his reputation as a playoff goaltender, there's absolutely some teams who would love to get anything other than what they have, including the guy with the best playoff reputation in the NHL. So if he were to depart the team at any point, I would say it has to be via trade. I also just don't really see him departing the team because the way I see it playing out is I think Bennington stays with the team. And I think that he is a blue until at least it will get one more contract in St. Louis at least
Mm-hmm.
probably. Let's see. So if it's 2 more years, that means he will be 34. Probably another, I don't know, 2 year deal maybe. Something shortish term to take him towards the end of his playing career. Maybe a 1 year signing, but um, yeah, with Binnington, I see him staying with the team for some time still. I just think that he means so much to this Blues organization, winning them their first Stanley Cup. He will always be the goalie that won them their first Stanley Cup, and he will always be, arguably could have won the Conn Smythe in that Stanley Cup winning run. So I think that I think Binnington means too much to this team to move on from.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they're going to stay with him. I think Hofer, it depends. With Hofer, the Hofer situation, I think depends on how he plays over this next contract. If he proves himself as a good backup, if he proves himself as a good to great backup, I think he probably gets priced out in St. Louis, to be honest. I think at that point, their organizational depth will hopefully be recouped right now because right now is pretty thin. Um, Especially given Colton Ellis is ready to be a backup. That role doesn't exist in St. Louis, so I would be expecting a Colton Ellis move at some point. Um, but he's really the only option who in terms of like NHL ready prospects. And so I think that with Hofer, if he really turns out to be a good to great backup who can maybe start, I think he gets priced out of St. Louis. I think if he plays around the same level, maybe the best case for the Blues is if he is right around that 900 905 save percentage and is okay, has some bad games, but is a good enough backup. That's probably the only situation where I see him sticking around long term.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
that's how I see it.
yeah, I can see that for sure. Let us know if you're watching live in the chat how you see this goalie situation playing out. We have one that says, if he lowers if he lowers the money he's willing to take, um, then Rob says he would extend it, but if not, you gotta take the heart out of business. Got another chat or another comment in the chat that says he'll win us our second cup. Love to see that. If anyone else has any thoughts, let us know. As well as on this next question that I'm going to pose to you, Alec, where do you see this goalie tandem ranking, like in the NHL, all goalie tandems? Because this is a comment from Jim Montgomery. He's said, I think the quote is, "I would take our tandem over any tandem in the league. Um, Looking at, I found this article, a ranking of all of the tandems in the league. The Blues came in at 26th. This is on the Athletic. I think it's Jesse Granger, who is sort of the goalie guru for the Athletic, put them at 26th. And granted, this was, let me see when this was. March 20th, so there was still some season left to be played. And at that point, Benner and Hofer both had an 899 save percentage. Hofer had a minus 6.35 goal save above expected. Just weren't having as good a year as the season before. So at the top of this list, just to sort of show you who's up here, it had number one Connor Hellebuck and Eric Comrie. It's pretty lopsided on that one. Number two was Lucas Dostal and John Gibson. John Gibson has left Anaheim, but Lucas Dostal is pretty great. They also have Shesterkin and Quick, Washington, Logan Thompson, Charlie Lindgren, Toronto, Tampa Bay, Dallas. So there are some good tandems out there. There are some great goalies out there. Where do you see the Benner Hofer tandem ranking league wide?
I would say that they're definitely top 10, I think. I think putting them outside of that, like, Eric Comrie, Connor Hellebuck tier. I mean, arguably that tandem deserves a tier of its own as like the best goalie in the world and then a really, really good backup. Maybe that is the best tandem right now. That's fine with me to say that. But I think short of that, I mean, in a given year, I think Binnington and Hofer can play up to not that level, but can play up to a like arguably up there with. I think honestly, they. This is tough. Because
I
how much do
don't
you
think you have to
weigh the
do it.
backup if they're going to play a third of the games?
I mean, a lot more than you would for Winnipeg. I mean, like Hellebuck started like, I mean, close to, I don't have the numbers pulled up, but it was close to 60 games, I think. Just
Well,
starts
I mean,
an
they just
absurd
run him into
amount.
the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I think you give Hofer more weight than Comrie in a discussion like that. It is interesting, and I don't guess we need to do like an exact number, but Jacob in the chat pointed out that TSN did tiers for goalie tandems. It came out today or yesterday, and the Blues were in the second tier. Top tier was let me find it here: Rangers, Jets, and Islanders. The Blues were in the second tier with the Canes, Stars, Kings, Habs, Devils, Lightning, Canucks, and Caps. So
What? That is such a random. Okay. Sorry to interject. I agree. I would probably also put the Blues in the second tier, but I would not
yeah,
have that many teams in the second tier. That is
who would you
a
bump down?
wide range.
I'd probably bump
I
down
mean, just
Vancouver.
off the top of my head, yeah, Vancouver, Montreal.
Sam Montembeau's pretty good though.
Yeah, but they don't have the quality of backup of Hofer, and
Yeah.
he's pretty good. But is he amazing? I don't know. I don't know.
Um,
Um, I mean, we don't need to get into the
yeah. It's an
ranking
interesting
itself.
discussion
Just
though. It's an interesting
yeah,
discussion because I think the ceiling for the Blues is like at the top of that second tier. Maybe an argument to be like a sleeper pick higher up. I don't know if that's true, but they have the ceiling to be like a top, I don't know, 7 tandem in the league, like maybe even a little higher.
yeah.
So, um,
I think that's
yeah,
about where I'd put it too.
yeah, for sure. So, um, just really, really, really excited to see what we get out of these guys, especially in a season where the Blues, as an organization, as a team, will be taking another step. What are they going to look like behind a better team? Really excited to see that. So, anything else you want to sort of throw into this goalie discussion before we move on?
I think we can move on.
Cool. Um, let's see. John in the chat said if Hofer can keep up his pace, I could see him being at an elite level in 7 or 8 seasons. Um, another comment says betting this tandem will shoot up those rankings after under a full year of Montgomery. Yeah, for sure. Well, let's go ahead and have that discussion. I think
Jim Montgomery raises all tides.
yes, for sure. Thanks for the segue there, because I think that takes us pretty nicely into our next topic, which is Jim Montgomery. We get a full season of Monty after only how many games was it, like
So sweet.
60 games this past season. So obviously they made the switch in, was it November that they did that?
November
Right,
25th.
yes, right around Thanksgiving. Yeah, like let go of Drew Bannister, which was tough to see, but Montgomery was too good an option to pass up. The Blues got their guy, signed him to a 5-year contract at the time. So under Montgomery last season, in 60 games, the Blues had a record of 35, 18, and 7. That's 77 points and a 642 save percentage. Um, I mean, he pretty much saved the season for the Blues in a lot of ways. I think there are a lot of people who deserve credit for that, but he was a big part of that, if not the biggest part of that. Um, so I mean, under a full year of Montgomery, like, where do you want to start this conversation? Because why don't we start it here? Why don't we start the conversation with the start of the season? So like, how good a start do you think the Blues can get off to this year? I'm going to pull up some of his stats from his Boston days as far as regular season starts. But you know, if you recall, the start of this season um, was a little so-so. I mean, it was up, it was down. There were highs and lows, and you know, I think of the start of the season, and my brain goes to like Pavel Buchnevich at center. There was like the Broberg injury. There was a Robert Thomas injury sometime around the early season. So like it was a lot of up and down at the beginning of the season for the Blues, and Monty helped turn it around. How do you see the beginning of this season playing out under Montgomery? Um, as they'll look to get off to a hot start, as sort of they have said repeatedly.
I think I think that makes a lot of sense to start at the beginning of the season because that is when I think expectations are going to be set for the Blues on the year, and expectations are already pretty high. But every time that they had big expectations, or really it was every time that they were backed into a corner, they met them and came out with their teeth bared and were ready to fight and to win big games when it was necessary. Um, and I could see something like that happening again, but it is curious because now they're not playing with house money anymore like they were under like in that first playoff run. They really have to prove it now and prove that they're not to that they're a force to be reckoned with, not just a good team, but one of the better teams in the NHL. Um, and I think that's a big step for a team to take. Especially one that's so young and still trying to find its footing in the NHL. So I am just a little bit apprehensive of how they start this season. Basically, what I'm saying is you're gonna have to convince me here that we can get out to a hot start. Under Jim Montgomery because I think that there is a lot to prove still with this Blues team. They proved that they can do it last year, but can they do it consistently and at a repeatable level? I would think so, yes, but after a full off season with some roster change, was it just a hot stretch of play? I can't help but admit that I have nagging doubts in the back of my mind. So, talk to me, John. What do we got?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question, and it's one that we talk about a lot in relation to like any win streak. Is it's fantastic, it's a lot of fun, but if you need to win 12 games in a row to get into the playoff picture. How good were you really? It's but then you did win those 12 games in a row, so like a win's a win. But yeah, it is an interesting discussion. So why don't we start it here? Just looking at Jim Montgomery's starts with the Boston Bruins, and let me also pull up this most recent season, which was not so good a start. So just going back to 2022-23, which keep in mind was the year that they were the greatest team ever. I don't think it's reasonable to expect that the Blues will be the greatest team ever. Um, but they got off to a great start. They won their first three, lost one, and then won their next. Let's count them up here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. So they only lost one game in all of October. They added on two more losses in November. So they got off to a fantastic start in 2022-23. Just looking at the first couple months there. Move it up a year, 2023-24. Also, only one loss in overtime, mind you, in the first month in October. And then in November, they tacked on, let's see, one more loss and two overtime losses plus three more losses. So what's that? Four losses, two of which, or sorry, six losses, two of which were OT losses. So, stumbled a little bit towards the end of November. But the point is, they got off to a pretty hot start, winning like 9 of their first 10, basically. 2024-25 was not so great for the Bruins. They had, let's see here, 5, 6, 7 losses in October and only 4 wins, so not ideal. And then in the month of November, they just a lot of back and forth. They didn't really get out to a great win streak. They didn't really lose a lot in a row. It was just a lot of up, a lot of down. So those first couple seasons I mentioned, fantastic start. Like that is, you can't really start a season much better than that. Last year wasn't so great, and that's why they moved on from him. They got out to a poorer start than they expected. He coached, let's see, he coached 20 games in 2024-25. So actually most of those, like about half of those November games, weren't his fault, or his, you know, he wasn't the cause for those wins or losses after November 18th or so. Anyways, Monty has a track record of getting out to a hot start. He has done that 2 of the past 3 seasons with the Bruins. Most recently was the poorer result, but he's done it before. He has that ability, or has that sort of, that ability as a head coach to get his team off to a hot start. Really, I'm just curious to see how he utilizes this team with a full off season of work. Like he had to come in and sort of learn the team on the fly this season, and it worked out pretty well. But I think any head coach would prefer a full summer to get to do that work. So he'll have that, which is a bonus. And then let's just look at the schedule for the start of the season. All right, so they open the season on October 9th at home against the Minnesota Wild. Okay, their next few games, I'll just read out the rest of their October opponents here. All right, so they start the season against the Wild. Then it's the Flames, Canucks, Blackhawks, Stars, Kings, Mammoth, Red Wings, Penguins, Red Wings again, Canucks again. So, I mean, your toughest opponents in the first month are like the Stars, Kings. Maybe you could put Canucks and Flames in there, but those are sort of the next tier down. So like, not a lot of really really tough opponents in the first month there. I think it's perfectly feasible, for this team to get off to a hot start against those opponents. Looking forward into November, it's sort of around the same. You get Blue Jackets, Oilers, Capitals, Sabres, Kraken, Flames, Flyers, Knights, Leafs, Flyers, Islanders, Rangers, Devils, Sens, and Mammoth. So that's the first couple months there. I think that is a strength of schedule uh, stretch that is perfectly doable for the Blues if they want to sort of get off to that hot start. So those are sort of, I guess, if I'm trying to convince you, Monty's done it before a couple times. Most recently didn't work out so well. His most recent start to the season. Um, but I don't know if it's different organizations, different teams. I don't know if it's fair to translate. I'm kind of thinking wait and see before we have cause for concern about Montgomery. So there's that. But also strength of schedule to start the season isn't all that great. So I think it's feasible. Isn't all that great in a good way. So I think it's feasible for them to get off to a good start. Those are sort of my the points of the argument I'll make. But do you have any thoughts on those?
Well done, I would say. I think you've convinced me
All right.
that there's a lot to prove for this team, but the biggest thing that excites me about Jim Montgomery is how good he is at getting high level talent from, Alexei Toropchenko, Nathan Walker, and Radek Faksa. I think the success of the WTF line as an identity line, being able to identify that and deploy it to excellent use is really a credit to his strength and the type of coaching that Jim Montgomery can bring. So we can expect the bottom six to overachieve a little bit. The top six, I just wrote a piece on this today actually. The top six, I think, has a little bit of juice to them already. That Holloway Shen Kairu was one of the best lines in the NHL, let alone as a second line. And then if we think Snuggerud can be a Calder finalist or at least have a chance to, Thomas has a chance to have a 100-point season. And if Booch has real reason to believe that he can bounce back, like that's a dangerous top six. And now you're talking about four good NHL caliber lines that should be deployed to great effectiveness. That's recipe for success. And then you get into how Jim Montgomery deploys his defensemen and has them be more involved in offensive plays up in the zone to provide for more goal scoring opportunities. And you look at a guy like Logan Mailloux and Cam Fowler and maybe even Philip Broberg, there's a lot of ways that this team can win. And that was the biggest thing about that win streak. Why I said it was so repeatable was it was because they weren't just using falling back, you know, on like Marner, Nylander, Tavares, just falling back on your core four, and Matthews and saying we're just going to beat you with the talent that we have because our talent is better than yours. That's not what the Blues were doing under Jim Montgomery. They were finding different ways to beat you. They were beating you in different game scripts, is something that I talk about all the time because I think it's a really important um, point to make when discussing coaching is that you're able to take it to any team in the league and you're able to find consistency in those stretches. So I'm with you, John. I absolutely think that they can get out to a hot start under Montgomery. He's done it before, like you said, and he can unlock and activate all of these different pockets and corners of the roster in a way that very few NHL coaches can, if any. And the Blues have all these little pockets and corners of talent on their roster. Like if you if you ask our friend Sam what Texier could be, or what a guy like Jake Neighbors can provide as a perennial 20 goal scorer. He may only have one trick, but can Jim Montgomery find a way to use that trick? You better believe it. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
absolutely buying Jim Montgomery stock for this season. And I think this could be a big, big year for the Blues and for Monty, starting out hot and then riding that momentum all the way to the Olympics, and then post Olympics, just finishing up the season to make it into the dance. I think it's all out in front of them.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, for sure. And another great point from Jacob in the chat here. The I don't think Monty is entirely to blame for the early season performance this year. I mean, yes, you have to hold your head coaches accountable, but as Jacob pointed out, that Bruins team should be in rebuild, whether they realize it or not. Yeah,
They're
that
the Predators of the East.
yeah, it
Just
feels
so
like
old.
feels like the window has probably closed, and they're kind of holding on in a lot of ways to um, some older days. But um, yeah, I think that's definitely part of the picture out there in Boston. But with a younger team like the Blues, and then as you said, a I don't know if deeper is the right word, but like more versatile team like the Blues, I think it's fair to expect maybe a little bit of a bounce back from Montgomery when it comes to early season performance. So really, I mean, as we have talked about a lot in recent episodes, I just can't wait for hockey to start. So really itching to see how they get out to get out to start the season, and then yeah, I think they've got something to play for the first half. It's the Olympics. You know, some of the players at the top of the roster are going to be vying for spots on their respective teams, and you know, like I'm sure Robert Thomas will be motivated after being snubbed from that Four Nations team. I'm sure he'll be motivated to work his way into the conversation. Dylan Holloway, I think, has a case if he really comes out hot to make Team Canada, and then you know you've got your Parayko, Bennington, um, guys like that who did get the call last time. But anyways, got something to play for at the beginning of the season, which can work wonders. Got something to play for at the end of the season, obviously trying to get into the playoffs, get yourself in the best position possible, and then once you get into the playoffs, of course you got something to play for as well. So, um, really like the way you laid it out there. Why don't we pivot now to sort of our last topic here, which is sort of the front office and Doug Armstrong, Alexander Steen. This is the second and final season of Doug Lex Armstein. Uh, so be sad to see that go, and definitely sad to see Doug Armstrong go. He's been such a fantastic general manager and president of hockey ops for the Blues. So um, after this season, he will be handing the reins over to Alexander Steen. There will be a new boss in the Blues organization. Um, so you know, Doug Armstrong gets one more trade deadline. He has the rest of this offseason and the trade deadline, and then I think sort of after that point, it's pretty much Steen's team, right? So I mean, like more or less, I think Doug Armstrong would still sort of have a say over or you know playoff type stuff. But anyways, um, not a lot of time left for Doug Armstrong. So how you feeling about the switch now? I mean, this was announced last summer. The sort of the succession plan. It was it was our first emergency episode. Was that announcement way back in the day? It was like episode 4 or something like that. Good times. Um, maybe 2. I can't remember. It was one of the early days.
Here we are,
We've come so
98
far.
later.
We're here at 98. We've come so far. So now that we've had a pretty much a full year and some change to process this succession plan, how you feeling about it? How you feeling about one of the best GMs in the game stepping down and you know Alexander Steen waiting to pick up where he's going to leave off?
Yeah, it really does. Just everything about it just really like passes the sniff test is the phrase I like to use.
Hmm.
It really just feels right that they have identified this is what they want to do. They've gone out and very specifically itemized this is how we're going to do it, and this is why it's going to work. And all of that really makes me feel confident in them as a Blues fan. Also, yeah, over his tenure, sure, there are some gripes to be had with Doug Armstrong, as any general manager will make mistakes. The thing about Doug Armstrong that I think beyond just his ability to make these fleece trades and get away with some crazy nonsense on making deals and also being one of the best drafters in the league. Beyond all of that, the what I'm going to remember Doug Armstrong for is his ability to correct his mistake. So signs Falcon Krug, doesn't work out, and goes out and instead acquires Logan Mayu, gets a young body on the defense, acquires Cam Fowler to play some
Philip
minutes,
River.
and gets I was that one guy from Edmonton too, who is now ascending to becoming one of the best defensemen in the league in 2 or 3 years' time. Would not be surprised if that's the case that comes out at all. So Army has such a great ability to pivot and try and work through things that I think Steen can pick up on, because how I want to think about this is, what is Steen going to be getting from Armstrong? And I think that that is one of Army's best traits, is his ability to, if something doesn't work out, if you aren't able to land a Jacob Chikrin or a Brady Kachuk, or a Kyrou deal falls through, okay, pivot and go to the next thing. If you can't find Jason Robertson, go out and supplement with cheaper guys, so that'll give you a chance at a big trade deadline, or all these other things. Like, his ability to be so multiple and so adaptable to the changes that come, I think, have been such a big part of Armstrong's tenure as GM, that Steen is going to pick up on and should be able to follow right in his shoes. Maybe not as coming into the league as one of the best general managers, but I think there's real reason to hope and to actually genuinely believe that this could work, and it could work really, really well. So once again, the Blues are kind of setting the standard here for something that hasn't really been done in the league. The Blues are putting their name on the map for sure, in terms of this move, and we'll see how it plays out. But things are really heading in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this sort of touches on a wider, like league wide sort of phenomenon or discussion. Is we might be seeing the end, or at least the pausing of the age of like the full blown rebuild. It just is really hard in the NHL right now to come back from tearing it all down. Like we're seeing a lot of teams stuck in neutral, and so there have been some new models, new ways of thinking, sort of emerging in the past couple of years of more of the shorter timeline, or retool, or whatever you want to call it. That sort of the Capitals did last year, and that the Blues have been doing the past couple of years, and it's sort of looking like it's starting to work. So yeah, I mean, as you said, Armstrong has been very adaptable when it comes to owning up to mistakes that he makes, and adjusting, right, and being able to sort of pivot and resolve those issues. Um, one I guess piece of evidence in that argument, or in that case, has to do with the contracts that he's signed in the past couple seasons, and the deals that he's gotten these players on. You may have seen Mike tweet this out. Have you seen the Athletic, their NHL contract efficiency rankings for this upcoming season?
I've seen them before.
Yeah, so this is a ranking of teams in the NHL based on essentially how good are their contracts, and it uses net value, and sort of surplus value to sort of balance what you're getting from that player versus how much you're paying them. Do you have a surplus, or is it a deficit? And sort of as all the math shakes out, they rank these teams. So last season, the Blues were 30th on this list, just at the very bottom, at the very bottom of the league. And this season, or at least right now, they are ranked at 19th, which in my opinion still feels a little low. But you've still got a few
I
deals
wonder
that,
how that factors as the Krug situation, because he's still not on LTIR.
they don't have him on the graphic, so I really don't know. Um, but they've got Justin Falk here, obviously a big deficit. They actually have Cam Fowler as a deficit, but
What?
I I think that has to do with his overall contract making 6.5, not what the Blues are paying him. So um, I, I
Okay.
I I think they just look at his value according to the model, which is 4.4, and then his contract, which is 6.5. I guess they don't get as fine tuned as looking at money retained by prior teams. That might get too complicated to get into, but basically, he is being paid $6.5 million, but he is, according to this model, playing like a $4.4 million player. So that is a roughly $2 million deficit. That's how it works. Uh, I'm not saying I agree, but that's just the math. Um,
Interesting.
but Colton Parayko's contract is finally a surplus value rather than a deficit. I mean, it's been a point of contention between Blues fans and the Athletic for a while. Um, So yeah, they gave a C minus to Fowler. Guess who has the best three grades on the team
Holloway,
according to this?
Broberg, Thomas.
Yeah, you got it. Robert Thomas is an A. Um, his value is 11.1. He's being paid 8.1. He's got 6 years left, so they've got a total surplus of like $17.5 million for him. Dylan Holloway making $2 million a year, but playing like a $9+ million player. Philip Broberg being paid 4.6, but he's playing like a $7.7 million player. Like I I don't agree with some of the like assertions that this model makes. Like it has Jordan Kyrou as a B minus on this. It's saying that he is an $8.6 million player, um, making 8.1. So like I mean, that's something that we've talked about though. Like we feel like he is more or less fairly paid. Um, for what he produces. I think he has the potential to be a lot more than that. But anyways, my point is, for the most part, I think the contracts that the Blues are signing, the work that Doug Armstrong is doing, and for that matter, recently, I'm sure Alexander Steen is doing as well. I'm sure he's been involved in like the P.S. Suter signing, which has a good grade on this, as well as like Nick Bukestad, Logan Mailloux, all that stuff. Um, Things are definitely looking up in St. Louis. I'm gonna miss Doug Armstrong because of how quickly he's able to sort of get the Blues back on the right track, and sort of the creativity with which he's able to do that. Um, but I trust in him enough to, by proxy, trust Alexander Steen, because if he sort of trusts Alexander Steen and has confidence in a guy like Steiner to sort of take over and pick up where he left off, then I think he's sort of earned the benefit of the doubt in that sense. And um, I really just am excited that the organization as a whole is future minded enough to sort of plan for this before it's too late. So yeah, I think things are looking up
Yeah.
overall as an organization. I really like what the front office has been doing for the most part in the past couple of years, and yeah, just excited to see what steps they take next.
Yeah, I got nothing to add there. I agree with everything you put. I don't want to get into this athletic rating too much, but
Yeah.
um, I think Army has proved himself and his ability to adapt and recover this past season with, two of the marquee moves of the year, honestly. And Steiner should be able to take over and fill in. He's got big shoes to fill, but
Hmm.
there's no indication to think that he can't do that as things stand right now. So um,
Yeah.
that's all I got. Let's go Blues, baby. I miss
Let's
hockey.
go Blues. Yeah, really excited to watch some hockey again, especially now that the Cardinals have officially sold and aren't looking too good. I believe one of the most recent episode titles for Deal on the Cards was like the Cardinals are dead or something. It's depressing. And you know I think I'll tell you this. I'm just excited for hockey. I'm excited to watch some Blues hockey again.
For
Um,
sure.
T minus 2 months and 2 days or something like that. So we're chugging along. We're getting there. I think in my opinion, the best way to pass the time is to watch slash listen to the Note News podcast. So, segue, plug, nailed it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That really helps us out. We have passed 500 subscribers, big milestone for us. And sometime pretty soon, we'll sort of talk about what that means and what that could sort of open up for you all, the listeners, what it could mean for us as well. But basically, big milestone for us. Thank you to all of our subscribers, all of our followers for being a part of that. So if you haven't, we'd still love to have you. So hit that button and help us get to our next milestone. Like this video, follow, rate, review wherever you listen, Spotify and
Yes,
Apple.
Jacob. Yes.
Jacob in the chat said, hopefully you get some more followers. Nice, nice, nice work. Follow, rate, review wherever you listen, Spotify and Apple. Those really do help us out. They go a long way. Get the pod in front of some new eyes. And then follow us on socials, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod, where we post lots of other great stuff and interact with all of our followers. So we will see you next time. Hopefully sometime soon. We will have Sam back on. We're trying to figure that out, but we'd love to have everyone join the chat, join live for that one. So Stay tuned and follow us, subscribe, all those ways to hear more. We will see you next time. And of course, as always, let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.